parables and stories. And we know that the greatest story ever told was the life of Christ. And he would also use stories to get his message across. And the stories we know as parables. And we have many, many cases in the Gospels where Jesus told these little stories. And these stories are basically written in the language of the people, with using things that they could relate to, things that they all experienced in their life, like wheat and wines and whatever. And because they could relate to these things, then the story's moral or message could easily be interpreted. And so what Jesus did was he told stories in the genre of the day. And one of the genres of the day was to speak in a rather severe exaggeration. It was just the way that people wrote in those days. And so he uses this in his also narratives when he tells his stories. So let's take a look at a couple of these stories and see what they have to say to us. Well, we could take a look at the story of the widow's mite. And who was the widow? The widow was a poor elderly lady who had very little to live on, but loved the Lord very deeply. And she goes to the temple one day. And when she gets to the temple is hustling and bustling, and there's hundreds of people going around. They're selling sheep and doves and all kinds of stuff. And she makes her way up to where they make the temple donation. And she sees all these Pharisees and Sadducees and Levites and priests and everybody else putting in large sums of money. Money that they'll never even know they had, because they had so much, it didn't make much difference to them. And she comes up, and what does she do? She puts in the only 2 coins that she has left in her savings. Why? Because she knew she wanted her to give her all back to the God that she loved. And what's the moral? The moral story is generosity. Generosity. She gives her all, just as Jesus would give his all on the cross. And many of us, we have so many gifts, so many blessings. We have so much stuff in our life sometimes that we could easily give it away, and we wouldn't even notice it as being missing because we have so much stuff. But if a gift is to become important, it has to come from the heart. And if a gift is going to become precious, it has to be a gift of our all. And that's what we want to give back to God. We want to give back the gift that hurts, the gift that leaves us with nothing, so he can fill us. And when he does fill us, we will be much richer than all those other people that seem to have all the money in the world. Lesson 1. Then we see the story of the farmer in a field. He's out there, he's plowing his field for the owner of the field, and it's day after day. It's hard work. It's farming. Farming isn't easy. It means getting up early in the morning and going to bed late at night, and it's working through the heat of the sun. Farmers work hard. And so Jesus uses this farmer who goes out in his field, and as he's out there raking in the field and hoeing, what does he do? He finds a pearl of great price. And so what does he do? He doesn't have a lot of money, but what he does, he goes and he sells everything he has to buy the field, because they knew that that one pearl was worth more than all that he ever had. And the moral of the story is that God is offering us eternity. He's offering us the best pearl that we could ever have. But in order to get it, we have to go and sell the things in our life that we've been hanging on to, things in our life that are distracting us from the pearl of great price. And so what Jesus is trying to tell us is there are some things in life that are so important that we should be willing to give up everything. And the thing that's most important in our life that we should be willing to give up for is our relationship with the God that loves us. There's nothing more important in your life and mine than that relationship, because that relationship is eternal. That relationship is going to go on for infinity. That relationship is never going to end. And everything else that's in our life is going to end. So, what we need to do is to make a decision, selling all we have, in order to take the good thing and only thing that will bring us to eternal happiness. So when you find that pearl of great price in your life, go sell what you have. Get rid of all the stuff that's in your mind, in your life that's not important, and give it up so that you can have that pearl of great price, and that you will have eternity forever. And then there's another parable that Jesus uses, is the seed and the mustard seed. Now we all know, if we've ever seen a mustard seed, they're extremely small. But when they're thrown out into the field and they're allowed to be buried and watered and given the nourishment from the ground that they're in, then they begin to grow. And they not only just grow, but they become the biggest bush around. And so the question is, Jesus gives us the seeds of life. He gives us the seeds of hope. He gives us the seeds of his life. And he wants us to let that seed grow in us. It takes time. It takes effort. And most of the time when you see a seed, most of the development is below the ground. And it's dark. And it's toilsome. But if we don't let the seed develop in the ground, it will never grow into the beautiful bush that it was meant to be. And when God plants the seeds of his grace in our life, he asks us to water them and nourish them and to let them grow, so that when they finally peep up outside the dirt and begin to see the sunlight, which is the graces of God, we will have the biggest bush and the most fruitful bush that will ever exist. So, how will you nourish your seed? You see, all these little tales that Jesus tells, all these little parables that he gives, are meant to teach us a lesson. And the lessons that we learn are the ones that help us to grow and develop in our life. And if we can follow these footsteps that Jesus lays before us, then we will have a good Christian life.